And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 600, 66.
So many economists believe the future will be cash-free. You're already seeing it from everywhere you go, whether it's your baseball game or to your local deli. Now, Sweden is getting there even faster than anyone else. According to a New York Times report, a fifth of the country, doesn't even use ATMs anymore. And 4,000 Swedes, now get this, have microchips implanted in their hands so they can pay for products with just a wave of their hand. Makes the Apple Watch kind of look obsolete. So on top of that, many Swedish companies are asking their employees to get implants to pass through access points and to pay for conveniences. Now the red flags start going up.
No bag, no keys, no wallet, and no ID. A move of the hand simply opens doors. Welcome to the future, or what is the present for a group of employees at New Fusion near Brussels. Staff members at the marketing and technology company voluntarily agreed to have radio frequency identification chips placed inside their hands. The kits were bought online, and a glass tube about the width of a pencil lead was implanted into their hands.
Now we're installing it for ourselves. We control it from ourselves, but if a government will one day will push it into the market or will push it into their people, it will have downsides as well. So we really need to think about this, how we handle privacy, how we handle security, which data you can put on it.
Dries van Krijn, a New Fusion developer, designed the software which is used with the chip. So what other doors could it open in the future? Other devices, he believes, may be able to be connected to your own electronic chip, opening up all sorts of possibilities.
You just scan your chip and you get your personal information. Your favorite Spotify track gets added to the Office playlist, so your music is combined with the others. So everybody has their their choice. It brings your to-dos, just like a personalized dashboard. That's one of the applications. It was just kind of a showcase to show what can be done in a few hours. So imagine if you have a few months, a few years, what you can build with just that personal identifier.
4 or 5 demos.
It is a technology that in the future could redefine our relationships with businesses. Think of all those cards which you carry with separate chips, whether for banking or transport.
The library, they have their own card. To every retail shop, you get another card. You're banking, you have 3, 4 Visa, MasterCards, it's so many cards. And instead, if we could turn that around and say, all right, no, this is my identity, that they would connect to you instead of the other way around, then we should have an ideal world.
An ideal world? Far from it. A real danger is how one rights group described the development. A way, the group says, to control workers in offices. And even the technology does not impress every tech expert.
The technology moves fast. And actually, this is the same reason why, if you're doing up a house, it's not clever to build in all the latest tech into the walls, into the floors and everything, because in 3 years it's all out of date. The same thing applies to stuff you put in your body. In 3 years it's out of date. And yeah, there may be security vulnerabilities and all that kind of thing, but do you really want to start digging these things out every 3 years and sticking more in? Because that's where we are. It will keep on changing constantly.
We came across this and saw it being used in other societies. We said, why not us? Why not us? That's the attitude here at 3 Square Market in River Falls. The software engineering company has taken the tech world by storm by offering to microchip employees.
An opportunity that we saw to really provide something to society.
President and CEO Patrick McMullen has been working on this project since January. Employees aren't required to get the chip. It's completely voluntary.
It's a big needle, though.
I've been pierced with bigger.
The company offered me the opportunity to get chipped, and I agreed.
One more big deep breath in, and exhale. Not too bad, huh?
Not too bad. Yeah, just a pinch. Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, it was easier than a shot. I mean, everybody's gotten a shot at a doctor. I almost didn't even feel it.
At what was described as a chipping party, a professional piercer implanted the radio frequency identification chips into the hands of employees. They're about the size of a grain of rice and will let employees access offices, sign onto computers, and buy snacks from a vending machine, all with the swipe of a hand. More than 50 of the firm's 85 employees were chipped, including Sam Bankston.
Well, I knew that there wasn't any weird science or anything strange going on with it, so I had no problem sticking it in my hand.
The company, 3 Square Market, partnered with a Swedish-based firm, Biohacks International, to install the technology. While a family pet can be tracked with a chip, President and CEO Todd Westby said the human chips aren't GPS-enabled and are secure.
We've got 256-bit encryption, and because it is a closed application, we basically have the keys to the kingdom for anything that gets published on this.
Experts say the chips might actually be more advantageous than key codes or access cards like the one I have, because this could be stolen. And in fact, 3 Square Market says it's already had inquiries from embassies, hospitals, and banks. Still, employee rights attorney Sean Wanta says the chips raise questions with him. He thinks workers could be sacrificing some privacy for convenience.
This card will be linked to vending machines, so the employer can see what you're eating, when you're eating it. They might be able to see when you use the restroom. And piecing that information together, an employer can get a pretty good idea of what an employee's workday looks like.
The chips can be removed if an employee leaves the firm. The company says it's like having a splinter removed.
Convenience, in a lot of ways convenience, really eliminating what I have to carry in my pockets.
Employee Tony Dana says the chip will be used for basic tasks like getting in and out of the building, logging onto his computer, and buying snacks in the break room.
And then to finalize your payment, you'll put your RFID chip, hold it against it. Now my unique card that's identified with the RFID chip, it's asking if I'd like to put the $6 on my chip. So yes.
Since word got out about the chips, 3 Square has been contacted by hospitals, universities, even the U.S. and foreign governments about the technology.
Imagine being able to travel without a passport or worry about losing it. You just hold your hand up and all the documentation comes up.
The company says this particular chip is not capable of GPS, but they admit that could be in the future.
And while the chips are approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, employee Katie Langer is taking a pass for now.
So my concern just is with the health effect. What's going to happen to my body when I'm putting this foreign object into my hand and down the road.
3 Square Market says it's investigating other applications for the chips and thinks one day their usage could become as common as smartphones.
So for our red flags, we have to turn to legal media analyst Lionel. Lionel, thanks for joining us on this. I know you've got some red flags, and I feel like I'm reading out of the book of Revelation, possibly. So what concerns come to you arise from humans microchipping themselves?
This is the mark of the beast. Listen, let me tell you something. I mean, I'm no biblical scholar here, but it's amazing the parallels made. One of these days, these kids, I think you call them millennials or something, they're going to take these little tiny RFID, radio frequency identification chips, about the size of a grain of rice. And they're going to be cool, Scotty. Oh, they're going to be waiting in line overnight to get implanted. One of these days, God forbid, Scotty, they find you guilty of something. And you go before a court. And they say, we're going to sentence you to prison? No. We're going to turn your chip off. And you don't exist. Poof. Everything. In fact, people are going to notice that when you walk up, they're going to say, who is this? You're not registering. You say, it's me. What do you mean, who is this? No, you're not showing up on this. You don't exist. If you think I'm kidding, this is Elba. This is like some type of a prison. And people are going to be, one of these days, enslaved by this chip that will replace you.
I want to speak to you about the mark of the beast this morning, the mark of the beast. Revelation 13, beginning at verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now this is talking about an end-time event. When all of the world as we know it today begins to spiral out of control. I don't know if it begins with a financial meltdown, a military confrontation, whatever it is. Men's hearts so begin to fail them that a cry comes for a one-world government. We must have a one-world government. There's no other way that peace and prosperity can return to the world. But there must be a single government. Consider it something like a federal government over the world. And there must be a leader. We have to have a leader that leads this government. Now, the scripture tells us that a man will arise and will lead this world government. And this person is known in the scriptures as the Antichrist. He come on the scenes as a peaceful man, but inside he's not peaceful. There is a demonic power that ultimately will be Satan himself will indwell him. He will cause people on the earth to receive a mark in their forehead or their right hand. In other words, you either comply to our system or you starve to death. And no one will be able to buy or sell without this mark on their right hand or on their forehead. 666 is a trinity, and realistically it's man and his body, his soul, and his spirit indwelt by Satan himself. It's finally when Satan, the rebellion that began in Eden finally reaches its climax, where man declares himself, a man indwelt by Satan declares himself to be God. He will actually go into Israel, go into the temple, and he will declare himself physically to be God. That's been Satan's goal right from the beginning. And he will finally have created an unholy trinity as it is. And all of humanity that agrees with that, all of humanity that agrees that man can be God, it will be nothing to these people to receive a mark on their forehead or their hand, because they've already agreed with it long before the mark ever comes. They've already agreed with this fallen thinking, this fallen theology. In their minds, they've been given to this fallen condition that man can be as God, and the right hand, which always represents the hand of power. Jesus himself told us in Matthew 24 and verse 38 that as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. Now, obviously, eating and drinking are not a bad thing. And marrying and giving in marriage, even the scripture says it's a good thing. but it implies a preoccupation with security and pretending that all is well. Convincing ourselves that there is no God, no judgment, no everlasting peril just ahead of us. And even if there is some acknowledgement of God, it comes with an inner scorning. Peter said in 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 and 4, knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, given to this pursuit of self as it is, and saying, where's the promise of his coming? Now, it implies, doesn't it imply to you, it does to me, that there is some knowledge of the Scriptures here. There are people out there that have never even considered this, so they're not really included in this. These have to be people that at least at some point had some knowledge of the Word of God, knowing that Jesus was crucified for sin, died, rose again the third day, and is promised to come back to rule and reign on the earth with those that are his own. But there's a scorning in those who walk after their own lust, not given to the things of God. Their minds are not fixed on the things of heaven. Their hands are not reaching out to what is legitimately in the Scriptures the work of God. And so a scoffing comes into the heart, and they said, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. It's the type of person who sits here today and says, oh no, not another message about the coming of Christ. They've been preaching that for 2,000 years. You know, my father used to tell me, he said, son, live every day like it's going to be your last, because one day you're going to be right. Paul says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3, he said, that day, that's the day of Christ, will not come except there come a falling away first. A falling away. In order to fall away, you have to have been somewhere to fall away. A falling away of people who sat in church but never embraced the work of God. Never really didn't want to go to hell, but didn't want to live for heaven either. Didn't really wanted the cross for redemption, but did not want the cross for a lifestyle. Didn't want to really go any deeper than just a superficial reading, sing a few songs, feel good in church. And that was, in a sense, the extent of it. But folks, that won't keep you in a storm. When things got tough in these last days, according to this, they fell away to another reasoning. It's important to understand what it is they fell away to. Joel, the prophet, in chapter 3, verse 14, he clearly speaks of multitudes in the valley of decision, or actually the word for decision is threshing. As the time leading to the Lord's final judgment on this world draws to a close, the world is being gathered to a point. It's being gathered to divinely by God. Nothing is happening that the Lord has not foretold us of. Everything is unfolding exactly as he planned it from before the foundation of the world. It's all been about a bride, a church, his son, and eternity with him. And the world is going to be folded away. And leaders and kings are all in the hand of God. There's nobody can form a plan that is outside of the will of God. And when you and I finally understand that, we're being brought to this, I think the culmination of the world as we know it is very, very close. And there are multitudes in a place of decision now. How deep am I going to go with God? How far am I going to go? How much am I going to let him rule my life? How willing am I to let his value system become mine?